Welcome to This Week, Those Books Aloud. I'm Rashmi Roshan Lal.
And I'm Michael Macy.
Really looking forward to this week's chat. It's about the student protests in support of the Palestinian cause and the people of Gaza, and it's at more than 50 universities in the US, France, Australia, the UK, and Italy.
And you've actually seen them up close, haven't you?
Yep, I teach at Goldsmiths, University of London, and one of the earliest campus occupations, as they're called, for the Palestinian cause began in February at Goldsmiths.
Well, the protests have divided university communities. At several campuses, students are demanding that their universities divest from corporations that profit from Israel's war on Gaza, which has now tragically killed nearly 35,000 people and injured nearly 78,000.
Well, divestment is pretty unlikely, isn't it? Though we know the model they're following. It's the student movement of the 1970s and 80s, which led to 55 US universities and colleges partially or fully divesting from South Africa's apartheid government.
Well, that was a big win for student activism. But in the case of Israel, it seems a lot less likely. In fact, Columbia University's president, Manoush Shafiq, has refused to divest from Israel. But she did say the institution will invest in Gaza's healthcare and education.
Actually, there's a lot of skepticism about the effectiveness of student protests.
Well, should we look at the rest of the reading pile?
Absolutely.
The first book is Troublemakers, Students' Rights and Racial Justice in the Long 1960s by Catherine Shoemaker. What do you think about it?
It is US specific. That said, it is an important exploration of how society's attitude towards children and young adults changed, not just in schools and colleges, but in general.
She looks at the nature of justice through the lens of the student protests of the long 1960s, which actually stretch in today's conversations around systems of power and control.
I think what I found particularly noteworthy was the explanation of how it was a huge risk for a young person to be labeled a troublemaker, and that it took time for student activism to be seen as a heroic catalyst for change. And some might ask if growing consternation over the pro-Gaza campus protests is a sign that student activism is swinging back to the troublemaker category.
Well, on to the second book, War and Watermelon by Rich Wallace. It's for young adults, but it does bring home the pathos of a defining moment in world history. It's set in the summer of 1969. Neil Armstrong has become the first human to set foot on the moon. Teenagers are discussing the new Beatles album, Magical Mystery Tour. And Woodstock's message of music, peace, and love is about to become a capstone for the 60s.
And the Vietnam War is looming over 12-year-old Brody Winslow's family. His older brother Ryan will soon turn 18 and have to join the army and fight a war he regards as immoral.
And then Ryan participates in a protest rally, is picked up by the police and helped out by his father.
And just to end on a particularly appropriate note with respect to the pro-Palestinian campus protests, though the watermelon has only a very small role to play in the novel, watermelon imagery has become a global sign of solidarity with Palestinians.
Well, that's true. And thanks for listening. We'll be back next week with the latest This Week, Those Books.
Bye-bye.